Okay, so now we're rolling. I'm going to give everyone co-host capacities as well, so as people arrive. Hi.
Morning. Ah, Anna.
Hey, Stacy. Good to see you again.
Hello.
Oh, the puppies, they
Good
need
morning.
you, Sam. Hi, Anna.
This is the very first time in a very long time that women are outnumbering men here on GCC. At least for the moment.
Great.
And I haven't seen you in weeks. Good to see you. But I got puppies here, so I got to deal with them right now.
Hey, Josh. How's it going, Anna?
Hello.
Anna, you're muted.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Where are you, Tammy?
I'm at Harry's in the Netherlands right now.
Right.
Yeah. I fly back to Canada on the 28th of November, so soon. Hey, Doug.
Hello, hello.
So everyone is co-host just for fun.
Who's this one at the top that, well, it's at the top for my thing, that is empty at the moment?
Heiner.
That's
Heiner.
Heiner.
Oh, Heiner. Right.
He's gone to the kitchen. Oh, here he is.
Heiner, it looks like you're in from the harvest.
It does look like that.
Anybody want to check in?
Okay, I'll go. I'm gearing up to go for 10 days to Spain, to a retreat there in A Course in Miracles. It's a big adventure for me because it's the first time I'm flying after my heart attack and sort of getting back in the groove. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really scared. Thank you, Tammy.
When do you go, Anna?
Next Friday. And I'll be back on Monday, the 2nd of December. Hi, Harry. Lovely to see you.
Anna, can I ask what you're scared of?
Yeah, of being in a strange place where I may not sleep, eating food that I'm not used to, just maybe having to walk more than I'm comfortable with. I'm just scared of all the little things that could make it really difficult. And it's just all in my head because I'm being met at the airport, and I was at a weekend with this group, so I know them, and I know that they're really lovely and helpful and, you know, concerned and will look after me. So yeah, it's just, yeah, trying not to let my imagination go into a negative rather than a positive. Actually trying not to imagine at all, that's the difficult thing, really. Yeah. Anybody else want to check in?
Sure, I'll check in. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Anna. And I think, yeah, it sounds like where I intersect with your story is also pushing into my out of my comfort zone. And so I made a couple of little videos this week that sharing the things, some of the things that I have to share. And I did another one this morning, and it just feels good to kind of, okay, well, what's something that I can do that yeah, gently pushes outside of my comfort zone, and I'm doing a lot of learning there. So
Where have you put the videos?
they're on my timeline. One is breathing meditation for
Saw
yeah,
that.
that one. And then the one I made today is since I was a kid, I've been using the oil that naturally kind of overnight collects on the face and putting it to the more sensitive parts of my skin. And I don't look 50, so I think it's working. So I wanted to share that very simple practice that someone can do. And this morning, I actually literally popped out of bed, and while I was still in sleep mode, I did it. So there's also, you know, I'm not ready, or like, you know, my hair's still bed hair and all of that. But I feel like it's authentic, and you can feel who I am, and it's just a simple message, and me also getting out of my comfort zone. And yeah, so
How is it getting out of your comfort zone? What would your comfort zone be?
sitting in front of a camera with nobody else there to share something, it's really difficult. I don't know if anyone here has really sat in front of the camera and tried to do something, but there you are, and you know, whatever. Being present, really present in the moment to actually be who I am, and have that be okay, even if I stumble on my words or any of that. And then turning it around right away was really great too. So pop it into the editing program and put some titles on it, and then upload it. And within an hour and a half, it was done, which was great. So kind of this fast iteration, that's also, yeah, pushing past my comfort zone. I'm like, no, it's got to be perfect. But actually, it just has to be something. And each time I do that, I learn. So yeah. The other thing that is kind of related to that, and I know Sam's not here because he's looking after the puppies, was I watched parts of last Saturday's barn raising, and I just in having walked so long with people, to see Sam, just his natural confidence and all of that growing, I was like, wow, we've changed in the last couple of years, and learned and grown a lot. And I think that's visible in a lot of, for a lot of us. So I was also noticing that.
Well, I'll check in real quick. I'm feeling really groggy. For some reason, I overslept, just woke up a little while ago, but I just want to be here. But if I'm quiet, I'm just not really feeling myself. I'm not sure if I'm coming down with something, but good to be here. Good to see you, Anna. I was asking about you, actually. I'm complete.
Welcome, Alex.
Okay, I'll check in. Good morning, America, and good night, Alex, and in the night and on your end of the globe. And good to see all the familiar faces. I'm in a very mellow place today. I slept in on the Sunday, and I allow myself to be without much thoughts and much programs. And I totally relate with the learning curve Tammy kind of pointed to that since I've been part of this group, I have changed in unprecedented ways. It's going into the unknown places where my held beliefs and assumptions basically were kind of just another thing to work with, and looking at other views and other people and other approaches. So I'm grateful that I can be here and see all you good people and learn from the unexpected and unknown.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dave, Colin. Doing some check-ins if you guys want to chime in or not.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Nice to see all your faces. There's a lot of people here. I'm just getting around this morning and listening. Hopefully I can be on camera soon. Thank you.
My name's Alex Reed. I concur with Harry Vanderwald. He said he's grateful. I'm grateful to be alive, grateful to be listened to occasionally, and be an interesting show. Let's get the show on the road. Joshua got a check in yet, and Sam, and Dave. Hello, Dave.
Josh frozen?
I think he might be.
This looks like the kind of freeze that drops off in a second.
I thought he was meditating.
That's a good message.
Hey, Dave, what's for breakfast? It's breakfast, right? Or what is it?
It's eggs and cayenne pepper and turmeric and chicken and peppers, all mixed up, scrambled.
Great, spicy.
Tomato, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what time is it where you are?
It's 10:15.
Great. Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Did everybody check in? I didn't hear Heiner. Heiner, how are you?
Well, busy as always. I decided having 17 hours Sundays my eating time. So I'm having tortelloni with spinach, and a friend of mine did a tomato soup. And I'm rushing after being really dead after an event on Four Futures 2 weeks ago, and decided yesterday I will be in this climate maze in Madrid, early December. I don't know how they coaxed me into this, but it looks like it's my destiny. So everything is fine in Berlin, and one day we meet.
Doug, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, Harry. We're sort of like in winter. So it's been snow and it's been cold. And there's something going on health-wise for me, and I have no idea what it is. So this coming week, I'll find out. But there's something that's nibbling at the edges that I need to smoke out from where it's hiding. And yeah, I'm feeling winter. So it's always warming to pull up a chair on a Sunday, and it's great to see all of the usual suspects present and accounted for. You know, as long as this can happen, all is right with the world. So, you know, this is definitely an anchoring and healing thing. And with that, I think I'm complete. I do have a follow-up question. Anna, you said your fear was partially sort of the unknown of this group and expectations and all of that stuff, but you've also shared before sort of fear of ambitious travel post the heart attack, and I was just curious whether any of that residue is still floating around, or did you sort of lick that with the circle up of your family?
I think I'm gradually becoming more confident in travel. I mean, I have arranged with the airline, they're going to give me assisted travel, which means that I can have a wheelchair from when I check in to the airplane, and I can be hoisted up with some sort of a chair even to the, so yeah, I mean, I'm sort of getting looked after, but there's always unknowns, and it could just exhaust me. You know, I don't know what it's going to be like. So it is, but I also find that it's fear, which really isn't based on anything really practical, you know, material, physical. It's much more an attitude of mind that picks on anything, which one moment can feel, wow, going to Spain where it's going to be warm, and then the next moment, oh, maybe it'll be too hot to, you know, could use the same thing, positive and negative. So
Do you have a preference, Anna?
only that I sleep. That's all. I don't know. One thing did occur to me that I could mention. I don't know if it'll be of interest to people, but what I'm discovering is that there are many different teachers of A Course in Miracles, and they all have a slightly different approach, and it's really interesting listening to these different teachers. It's a bit like, I guess, our groups with all our different opinions, that somehow we're all going to the same place. And it feels the same with A Course in Miracles, that all the teachers really basically would agree, but there are quite big differences between them. And they, you know, in a sense, they contradict each other sometimes. So I don't know what I conclude from that, but just it's interesting to me to dip into each of them and get different takes.
we sort of have a tendency to do that going back a really long ways. You know, Christianity turned into Catholicism and Protestantism, and you know, things we tend to like to fork things.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's in service to us. Every time there's a forking, it seems to become a basis for killing each other. But but it is a sort of running tendency, and the the place you started is it also it sort of begs a fundamental question in my mind in terms of is our default fear as a starting premise, because we go to it so easily, we find a basis or reason to to have that attach in the face of new, in the face of change, in the face of different ideas. And, on an instinct level, is it just sort of a legacy of our evolution that the first reaction is fear, and then we decide we're safe and love can step up. And can we invert that? Is it possible to turn that mechanism around and start from a place of love and only go to fear if provoked? That seems like a really of the essence blocky kind of question. Why is the assumption to be on guard in the absence of information in the face of new? Because how long and how many hours have you invested in the Course in Miracles up to this point? And you're going to a place where everybody is Course of Miracles initiated on a profound enough level to spend shekels and travel to a place to come together in 3D and rub noses. And, can you think of something more intrinsically safe than that? And yet it's still possible to ferret out something to be anxious about. It's just, what is that? Why do I do that? I don't know.
I would guess that it's to do with identifying with the body, because the body is always vulnerable. You can just trip and break your leg and be stuck for 6 months or something. So I'm appreciating what you're saying about starting to come from love rather than fear. And I think to do that, we have to understand that we're not the body. Because while we identify with the body, we are vulnerable to everything here. Yes, Harry.
Sorry to interject. I have a different view I want to put next to it. I think what I am right here, right now, is only the body. And it feels to me, and I can't judge that basically you want to disconnect from the body in order to solve the problem of fear. And I think what I'm learning is trying to own my fear and embrace it as a part of me being alive in this body, I'm always scared, and there's always some red flag waving somewhere, and I can always trip and kill myself, and I can stumble off the chair and be ill, and everything will happen because I am alive in this body. I have no other way of being here. And for me, the approach is more like, okay, this is part of being alive, that I will die, that I will be sick, that there will be pain and unavoidables, because they're part of life. Just wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
Tammy?
Yeah, I just wanted to do body in the alphabet code, because it's a really nice short word that is also clear. So body in the alphabet code is being bounded in form for a purpose. B is being, O is boundary, D is form, and Y is purpose. So, and I also think that these questions are multidimensional, and I don't think that we are just our body. I think that this body is an anchor for a co-housing of spirit and flesh. So yeah, I just wanted to put that in there, just beside Harry's and Anna's thoughts.
I like that. What do you think the purpose part maps to?
Well,
because it's a really loaded word in terms of, you know, from the eye of that's like huge in the eye of the beholder. And that's actually been a lot of block and conversation, you know, contention here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut off your responding.
Well, this is great. What Tammy introduces is, of course, a different lens, the lens of the alphabet code. And as you know, I've been working with Tammy in the alphabet code basically because I thought it was bullshit. And I'm still deep into it. And instead of me debunking the alphabet code is changing me and my perception of the world, and basically adding a different perspective that's from the multi-dimensional, so not in this body form, but there's more. Yes, I am this body in this world, in these limitation of time and 3 dimensions. And there are many more informed people who state there's more than this here. There's beyond the here, and there is an eternity and whatever multidimensional, whether you approach it from the science side, where the suspicion is that there are like 11 dimensions. So that's interesting. Or when you look at the space observers, they notice we're just at the very fringe of the universe. And you know, when you look at temperature, you got temperature from 0 to million, and we're like in Kelvin, we're at 273. So we are very at the margin of many things happening in a more wider way of thinking. And all we can do is use our thinking to go beyond that. We have our brains, we can travel anywhere. So we're doing that right here, right now as well. So it still is, this is just one dimension, our body, but I am here in this, what Doug mentioned so beautifully, the experiential plane, because here is the only place where I can experience stuff like fear. Over.
So to add to, you know, in line with what Harry's saying, Doug asked what you thought was the purpose of it. And for me, the purpose, I mean, I really think strongly the purpose is to be able to experience all the energy of the different emotions, to encapsulate it. That's why I'm very, you know, where many people think it's important to separate from those emotions, I think just the opposite. I think it's very important to go through them and to feel them. That's when they transform.
Bang on, there's no shortcut for life.
Well, the ancient Greeks had gods in the image of men and sometimes animals. But did we create God in our image, or did God create us in his image? Over.
You're muted, Harry.
So just to respond, Doug, in terms of purpose, and what that means in what I think it means in the word body, it's in the place of form. And I think that every person has their own relationship to purpose and has their own purpose, that at whatever level they have the capacity to understand and embody, that's what happens. And I think that we're also entangled in a world that is difficult. And so I think the bottom line is, I think that that purpose is individual. It's interconnected and entangled with all things. But I think that it's for me, it's about finding what is really actually true inside of me as my own self, as source, and taking steps as best as I can to manifest what feels right. And like Stacy said, it's not as distinct from, it's the feelings, the emotions, those senses are all part of the party. That's my thoughts.
So just to sort of like reflect back. So feeling is a big part of the deal, the emotional stuff. There's obviously also, if out of the physical comes sensing in a broader way, which is all this, the senses of smell and sight and audio, oral and tactile and taste. And so that's another whole sort of layer and facet. And then Tammy, in your last share, there's sort of the higher level and perhaps tending toward the more abstract, my purpose. There's sort of the blank check designation piece of it, which is what do I want to do with my feelings, my senses, and my being as a physical actor, an agent, and being in a physical world. And I love the cleanness of how alphabet code gets us to this. That's the power of it, I think, in terms of this contextualization engine. And what is sort of also intriguing to me is what's above and beyond all of those things in the non-physical, because in the current frame, that's the limitation of human beingness. But if the alphabet code is, the physical part is for the purpose, and these are some of the purposes, some of the dimensions of that. So we can feel, we can sense, we can think into, doing. What is it to be outside of those contexts? Because that's all going on in here and present and accounted for too in parallel, even if we can't sense it, right? It's sort of, the fact that it's not in the sense realm doesn't mean it's not there, which is Anna's, I think, a big part of Anna's, frame these days of, the physical thing is temporary. Like, that's not where we live. We live in this extrapolated place beyond that. And what might that be about? Like, beyond our, our sensing and emotional event horizon. That's an intriguing place to think into, I think.
Well, I think the Course in Miracles would see the purpose of this physical distance to be a pathway towards like time. The purpose of time is as a pathway to the eternal. So it's a sort of, it gives us time to learn what we have forgotten, because basically we are eternal, but we've forgotten it. So this physical existence, we have a choice. We can just go off into all sorts of directions and completely lose ourselves, which the Course would call all illusion anyway. But if we're looking for the truth and we manage to make that choice, then the purpose, we can use this bodily existence. It can be a tool towards finding our home, finding the real home. I think that's how they would put it.
So you're pointing toward another piece of the puzzle, and that, can you say more about construct of real home? Seems to be something separate from, like Tammy's reference to individual purpose, right? Feeling, sensing, individual purpose. What does finding home mean to you? Can you say more about that?
Well, actually, it completely fits in with what Tammy was saying, because I think, it's totally true that it is individual and it is within. And that's where we have to look for it, because actually there is nothing outside. That's a big statement, and that's what the Course in Miracles would say, but I'm repeating it even though I don't understand it.
Hi, Tira. Welcome to Considerations of the Universe, all of us and everything.
It's actually Tyra. I made that mistake too.
Oh, sorry, Tyra. Hi.
Welcome, Sam.
Good to drop back in. It took about 45 minutes to deal with the puppies.
You're muted, Tyra.
Yeah. Hi, there I am. Okay, can you see me? Okay. Am I still on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are.
Okay.
Out of
Okay.
curiosity, what time zone are you in?
I'm in the Pacific time zone, so it's coffee time. That's what time it is here in California. Yeah, so I'm in Pasadena, California.
Cool. And your connection to GCC is via?
Joshua Bridge.
Nice.
Yeah. Hi, Joshua. I think he's there.
Yep.
Let's see.
How did Josh get you to join one of these sessions? You're on mute, by the way.
Well, I've been chatting with him about different subject matters, and so I think that he threw it out there that it's something that I would enjoy. And I listened in on a call a couple of days ago and Anna was there, and a few other people. So here I am again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So is there a specific topic? I know I'm joining in a little bit late that you guys are touching on.
Yeah, but it's so huge, it's hard to summarize. It's okay. So we are here all humans and meeting each other online, and the discussion is, okay, but is this reality all there is, or is there something more relevant I should focus on? And because there are like the multidimensional whatever there is out there kind of thing, and the current state of the conversation is it's not really out there, it's all within. So we basically seem to be fractals of a larger wholeness that we seem to experience as all different parts. We seem to, to me, you are all other people, but from a higher plane of perspective, so to speak, we're all the same. Even more zooming out, as Heiner is an expert on multi-perspectives, we're all one. So this is basically the self talking to itself. So I'm talking to myself here, which is interesting.
So there's something interesting in that, right? Looping back to the, why do we fork? Why does Christianity become Catholicism and Protestantism? And why does everything get divergent rather than convergent? And I mean, the easy answer is that, where's the fun in it getting convergent? If we all converge into the same place, then there's nothing to talk about, and there's nothing to play with. That whole thing about God created all of this as a cosmic way of keeping him or herself entertained.
Yeah, I would be talking to myself all the time without any differences. And now I forked into all these fragments, and now I got an interesting conversation, and it helps me become more conscious, aware of more perspective. So I think that's, and from more physical point of view, what is the word in English? Well, things always change all the time. It's a 1, 2, 4, and so that's a property of the third dimension, I would say. Of the process of time in the third dimension produces change all the time. That's an effect of it. I could go to the math of it, but I'll skip that one.
Well, there's also the generativity in that, right? I'm sorry, go ahead, Stacy.
I was just going to say that I see it a little differently. I see that the world has all these ingredients, let's say, and whatever the different energies are. We each get a handful, like in those cooking shows where you open up the box and here's the ingredients, and what can you each create? And I think that we forget that we're not meant to create the same thing. And so, Doug, when you talk about why things fork, it's because we're saying, oh no, this is the way to do it, but I don't know what's in your box. And I've forgotten that the reason you have your own box is specifically to be different.
I like that. I like thinking, what kind of cake am I? Like, what kind of cake can I bake today?
Great. I know a daughter from a baker, and she has become a therapist exactly using this metaphor to encourage people to be their own cake. It's already out there.
Yeah.
You use that peanut brownie mixture. You can get a peanut brownie cake mixture. You put it in a paper bag with a couple of eggs and blend it with a blender. Then you fold it up and put it in the microwave oven for 2 minutes.
I'd like to describe an experience. Sorry. Were you finished, Alex?
There was an experience I wanted to talk about when children were asking lots of questions just after mankind evolved language. how long ago? They say there was a story of the flood long before Christianity in the old Egyptian myths, stories of floods and of prophets and saviors. But before, when language had only just developed, there were children asking questions. And you could tell, as soon as mankind got hold of language, you could tell that religion was bound to occur eventually, because these questions children ask at every village, in every camp, every day, is what happens when you die? And the parents would say, well, if you behave yourself and you be quiet at night, you'll die and you'll go to a lovely place where you never get sick and you never have to work and you always win the lottery. But if you're bad, if you're noisy and you play up, you'll go to a place where it's very terrifying and hot. So children have to behave. Now that story of heaven and hell is where religion came from eventually. Because children remember these stories when they're growing up. They tell their children. All yours, Anna.
Okay, I was remembering an experience I had on Saturday evening. On Saturday, I went to an all-day Course in Miracles class with a new teacher that I'd never met before. And there was a very small group. There were just 6 of us and the teacher. And it was really intimate, very enjoyable. I felt like I really had a good time. And then had to catch a train on the way back, and the train was cancelled, so I had to wait at the station. I was sitting at the station. The next train was sort of late, and I was sitting next to a young woman who had a few bottles of beer on her lap, and she was busy drinking some of it, and she was cursing at the trains because they were always late and that she always was late for her work, and why can't they run the trains on time? And eventually she turned to me and she said, "Excuse the language." And I said, "Oh, that's okay." And we just started talking. And she told me that she worked at the Hilton Hotel. She lived on her own, but her mother lived just around the corner. She told me her life story, basically. She just opened up to me. And then we all got on the train and I sat opposite her and we continued this conversation. And I just felt so warm and loving towards her. And she obviously enjoyed having the opportunity to talk to me. She'd been to see Diversity, which I don't know whether any of you have heard of, this amazing street dance group that won the Britain's Got Talent award in 2009 or something. And I'd never heard of them, but I tuned into them just before coming on here. And they are incredible. English, black guys who are sort of, they seem to be through 3 groups of brothers. But anyway, they've made a huge success of this street dancing. And why am I talking about this? It's just somehow the experience of connecting with somebody you wouldn't really expect to be able to connect with. And I think it was something to do with having had that day because that was part of what we were doing, was thinking about how do we relate to each other? Because there's so much in us which prejudges and well, judges, basically, other people. And of course, I would have judged this woman downing all these beers and cussing, and something in me just didn't feel like judging. And I was just sitting there, and we just really connected. And I'm going to leave it there, I guess.
Gave that connection validation, and
You were muted at the very beginning. I just unmuted you, Tira. You're on now, but
thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit new at this. So Anna, I really appreciated your story because it, I find in my day-to-day life that if I just have some sort of human connection, there is an expansion within me. I go from being tight to being, this lovely open balloon. And it can only, even if it's just for a few minutes, it can really shift my whole day. And by sharing that story, Anna, you're in my mind, you're validating the importance of connection by sharing it with us, so that maybe as we go out in our day, we'll have those same experiences. And that's where I think the miracles happen, is when I connect with another human on a sincere, almost disarming level, that sense of disarmament. And that's when we let go of that judgment and realize that they're a human being just like us, and everyone has their story to tell. And if we just listen back to that archetype of language and asking why, it's in us to sit around the campfire and ask why and have those connections. So yeah, that was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm reminded of that phrase, the ships that pass in the night. Ships that pass in the night going in opposite directions. And all those, the souls on board each ship never get to meet each other. And yet they could be great friends if they did. And I get a vision of a big city. There's thousands of big cities in the world. And in those big cities, there's hundreds of trains and buses filled with people having conversations every day, every morning, every night. And they're all part of the tapestry of the human experience. The thing that strikes me as significant, though, is the fact that sometimes you lend your ear to somebody and they'll open up and give you their life story, and you don't have to reply. You don't have to fix it. You're there, you're part of it. It's part of the experience. So it's all a learning process, usually. Thank you.
It reminds me, sorry, Alex, you finished? No.
Yeah, finished.
It just reminds me of Harry and Tammy talked about something that happened when they had a holiday, that they met a guy and they really connected with somebody. Do you remember that incident? And there was something very significant about the way that you connected.
Harry, that was when we were on the Sunshine Coast and we met Elvis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was, part of a group of people that were sitting around drinking, middle of the day at a park bench near the beach, and there was a really beautiful connection that the man had with Harry, and they actually, tears came to their eyes. They hugged each other. And, it was probably an hour and a half of a process of unwinding to get there with his friends and them also being a community of people. It was just an unfolding that was really, at the end of the day, just about simple belonging and human to human contact.
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, well, it's similar to Anna's experience on the train. You meet a random stranger, and particularly somebody you wouldn't talk to in normal circumstances, and then you get a connection, and the connection is so honest and deep and truthful. And I like to connect it to a remark I made earlier. If it's true that we are from a higher perspective all just fragments of the same higher self, then I'm just meeting myself, and it feels like it. When I'm looking in the mirror, brushing my teeth, the largest and most difficult exercise on a daily basis is to love the guy who's looking back at me in the mirror, not judge him, not have comments on how he did today, and just genuinely love myself. I got this tip like maybe 20, 30 years ago already, and still it's a daily practice to meet myself in the mirror and look at myself and accept myself without the judgment. And if I can do it with any other part of me, like you people, I can just see you and judge you and accept your story as being part of this greater truth I can't wrap my brain around, then we're doing fine. And then we're having these beautiful, because it's so great to meet somebody who just opens up, and you probably will never meet again, but I feel more complete after an encounter like that. Thanks for allowing me to share this.
Jesus actually said, and I've understood this differently recently. Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And I've always taken it as, you know, like you love yourself, love your neighbor like that. But it's not. It's love thy neighbor as being yourself. So you and he are the same person. Which is, it's just a much more beautiful way of understanding that particular thing. Yeah.
Gosh, it's really Sunday.
Yeah, I like the one I like is to treat your neighbour as you'd expect your neighbour to treat you. I mean, you love your wife. You might love Santa at Christmas, but you've got to spread your love around, you know. If you love your neighbour, you've got to be careful sometimes. I mean, you know, that's a different kind of love. I expect my neighbours to treat me the way I would treat them. And if that's with understanding and respect, you develop trust. But I reserve the love for my maker, love, and my neighbour. Well, you know, if you've only got so much love to give, you can't share it around with everyone equally. You've got to give some extra love for your wife, your partner, your children, the people that are closest to you and have the most meaning for you, the ones you'd be shattered if you lost them. So that's a different kind of love than the
Alex,
love for
if you see that person as you, if you were to see that neighbor as being you, in other words, there is no difference. He's not other.
That's where I get the problem.
Why is that?
If I love everyone the same amount, the love loses its meaning.
Come on.
I've got to love some people more than others.
To me, love is unity. I can't even distinct unity.
Well, it seems to be, if there was a row of cars, I wanted to buy some car, and there was a row of cars, one was $100 and the one at the other end of the row was $100,000. They vary in value. Now I might love the expensive one more than the cheap one. Might have no love at all for the cheap one. So I shouldn't relate it to cars because cars aren't people. But you know, if I love everyone equally the same amount, then it's lost its meaning. It's just, you know, I would say to somebody, I love you. And they say, oh, that means I'm special. So no, I love everyone the same. So it's lost its specialness. no longer special.
But Alex, the love that you're putting out is only half of the equation. It's how they're receiving it or not receiving it. You know, I mean, is love a verb or is love a description of how you're feeling? They're not, you know, it's not the same.
Well, they'll say, how much do you love me? And I'll say, I love you the same amount as I love the person standing next to you.
Okay, process remark. The question on the table is, what is love? Maybe I would like to hear some descriptions or approaches from other people. What is love according to you?
No, I think what Alex is saying is really interesting, Harry. It's really the nub of Doug's question, why those things, the religions, what was it, diverge, why we fork. It's really because we prefer some to others. I mean, it's exactly what Alex is talking about. And that's the human condition, that we make that distinction between people that we like and people that we don't like, or people that we really love and people that we don't love. And
It's the othering piece.
the other,
It's you know, what comes to mind, Alex, in response to what you were sharing, there's a workshop that I teach, and I'll have a student who's having issues in their relationship. And I'll say, how much responsibility do you bear for creating closeness and intimacy in your relationship? And people will come back with 40%, 50%, 75%. And the truth is, each person in a relationship has 100% responsibility. So somebody who comes back and says 50 is reserving a 50% right to say, I'm right and fuck you. Which gets back to this idea of being right versus being close. So, at least in the context of unconditional love, my finding it challenging to love somebody as fully as I love my wife or my children or somebody who's in a close proximity to me isn't about me loving them less. It's about me looking at me and understanding what is creating that difference in me that has me holding out, me not at 100% in relation to them. And what are my beliefs or fears or judgments that are preventing me from recognizing me in them, to Anna's point, loving them as me. And it's really easy for me to rationalize or justify why I don't need to or have to or want to love somebody at 100%. But it also maps to being right over being close. And in our world, being right over being close maps to people dying. And I'm complete.
I saw Stacy and then Josh.
Tyra can go first. Her hand's down.
Hear me?
Put the now we can hear you.
You're on,
We can hear
Tyra.
you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what came to my mind and what Alex was saying is I was thinking about the love I have for my children. Okay, that to me is the epitome of complete unconditional love. what that love entails is protection. And I think what I'm hearing from Alex, and I think what a lot of us do with our immediate tribe, is this sense of protection, that mama bear, you know, I will fight anyone off for my children. And so I'm wondering if protection and that fierceness we have towards keeping our tribe safe and healthy and loved, I think that's worth looking at, is like love and protection, and how does that form our relationships. And then secondly, to me, what love means, as I touched on a few minutes ago, is expansion. So if I'm going over to my neighbor who I've never met, they just moved to the neighborhood, I'm shy. I'm not, it's hard for me to you know, walk over there and say hello. But that sense of expansion and that giving of self, it's like that gravitational pull that happens throughout all the universes. You know, they just recently measured that on some amazing piece of equipment out in the desert, and it's a little tiny blip from something that happened 1 billion years ago, far, far away. So if that gravitational pull can hit our planet, make it through our layers of ozone and whatnot, just imagine what that connection we have with other individuals creates a gravitational pull. And that's not to say we don't love our immediate tribe more. It's just part of the whole, to me, spider webs of connections. So Alex, protection, that's what I'm hearing from you. You're protective of your love towards your wife and your immediate tribe. And it's hard for you to differentiate between the importance of that and then allowing ourselves to love other people. I got a little sidetracked on all of that, but hopefully someone can touch on that. Thank you.
It's difficult when the barbarians are at the gate.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you want to go, Stacy?
I lost it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm happy to pick up where you left off, Tara, because studying love as a physics equation or as a verb or as an action or as what it is, it's so beyond our understanding as human beings. It's almost like studying the ATP molecule inside of your body that gives you energy, that creates life itself, that creates movement. And the best way that I could understand love, I think I've said it here before. Oh, sorry, I was getting a call. Yeah. Anyway, I believe, let me before I get interrupted again, take this in a second, but I believe it's very similar to electricity, that each molecule itself, if it decides to be selfish and not give love, then electricity doesn't flow. Meaning the way electricity works is an electron pops out of an atom, and if you don't let it in, then it'll explode. It'll just not, the atom will dissipate and go out of being. It won't be there. But if you pop out another electron and make room for that electron to come in, that energy flow and movement creates electricity. So that's what I think love is. I think if someone comes to you and says something, or there's an action, and you stop and say, I'm not letting my being interact with your being, then it just dissipates. But if you let that electron come in, that energy, that verb, and then you let it go out of you, and that's the faith of love itself. That's the true, oh my God, I'm going to let go a part of me and give it to something else. But then I know something's going to come and give it back to me. And then that energy flows. So that's how I understand love. That's the way I know it. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Josh. That's awesome. I'd like to just drop love in the alphabet code, because it really, in particular, what Josh had to say, yeah, he puts a good light on that. And when I do the alphabet code for love, I've always been a little bit confused, because For Tira and those who may not have come in contact with the alphabet code before, it's something that I perceived about 20 years ago, and it gives a specific meaning to each letter of the alphabet and deepens the meanings of words. So love in the alphabet code is informing the boundary of flow energy. Thanks, Harry, for doing that up. And so how Josh was talking about this flow, this channel, it according to what it means in the alphabet code, the identity is you're informing that boundary. You're either and that boundary has flow energy. So it's like love is the pipe through which your kind of conscious choices that are informing this boundary of what you may or may not allow or perceive, because all of those things are informing how you perceive the world as well. So I just wanted to share that, and thanks for putting that out there, Harry.
Go ahead, Tara.
With that alphabet code, could you speak more to boundary? You know, the inform, flow, and energy, and then can someone touch on that boundary part? Like, is that part kind of like what I was saying as far as protection? You know, do we set boundaries with our love? Can you go back to that, please?
Sure. Yeah. The letter O is it. When I first heard it, it was like the world, but that world has an edge. And what I came to understand through inquiry was that edge and that boundary is what it's actually speaking to. And so it's one way of being able to not be all and everything. I think for us, with the limitations of our biology and perceptions, it's a way to be able to put an edge or a boundary around what it is we understand or experience. So it's also to do with identity and belief, because those are other types of boundaries that we create for ourselves so that we can understand the world better. So I hope that answers your question. It's like it's the idea of a parameter and the idea of an edge. Also knowing that the truth is that we are all one as well. And part of what I've heard kind of threading through this conversation makes me think about there's belonging, what it is to belong. And there's this sort of remembrance that, you know, like with Harry's story or Anna's story, there's this remembrance of us all being connected and this huge relief that comes over us where we kind of co-resonate with someone in an unexpected way. I think that kind of reminds us that we are all, you know, perhaps one organism that's having these different focuses of experience, but we're entangled, we're interpenetrated, we're part of a wholeness that's includes all of our eyes and ears and hands and hearts. It's part of what I'm feeling.
So I think what I'm seeing is there is love as we define it in this world. So it has a very specific boundary. Yes, it's a flow of energy, but it is, as Alex was just, what is that? Hi,
People are dropping in and off, and I think it's to do with the
okay.
internet.
It's as Alex was describing, that we get drawn towards some people as being more important in our lives, that if they were to disappear, I think he said, you know, our lives would crash or something like that. So there is some relationships where the love connection describes a very, like you were talking about, Tyra, about children. You know, the connection we see here to be incredibly important and special. We wouldn't ordinarily be able to say, yes, I can love everybody like that, because we have these special relationships that we feel it's actually really important to be able to say that we love them more than we love other people, love strangers, for example. So that's what happens in this dimension, you could say, in this world. And A Course in Miracles is talking about the possibility and what it is describing as a reality, that actually everybody here is a part of me, is me that I'm seeing, and that the salvation of the world, you could say, is dependent on me being able to love everybody in the same way. For example, there was, on that Saturday, there was there a mother, the class that I had all day, there was a mother whose son is dying of cancer. And she is praying and hoping for a miracle that he will recover. And the teacher was trying to help her to understand from different points of view, that from the point of view of the Course in Miracles, her relationship to her son is no more special than her relationship to anybody else or everybody else, or you could say God, which includes everything. It's incredibly difficult to relate to that way of looking at people. But like I say, the Course in Miracles actually says that it's the divisiveness, this need to have special relationships, which actually is what is destroying the world. You could say destroying our civilization. Obviously, to really understand that, you'd need to go a lot deeper into it. But it is that contrast between the way that Alex was describing how he experiences love towards certain people as being more important than others, and what it was that Jesus said when he said, love thy neighbor as thyself, as if he was you. That's what he's saying. Love thy neighbor as if he was yourself. That's what the Course in Miracles is talking about. And I'm complete. Josh.
Thank you, Anna. I'm just thinking of what like the whole purpose of being on this earth is to figure this stuff out. That it's so, the discernment of how to love yourself, how to love others, how to love your community, how to love your trees, how to love your kids, how to love the moon, how to love everything is the reason we're here, in my opinion. I just think that's why this reality exists. And I just had to make a choice. I'm talking to you guys about love, and then my stepdad calls me and I want to love him because he's trying to get a hold of me for the rain is about to come in a couple days, and he's freaked out like everything's going to get wet that he's working on. And how do I love him? And how do I tell you guys about love? And like that, I think is what life is like, okay, I'm trying to work on my work, but my kids want my attention and my boss wants this thing done and this is happening. And how do you discern between all of that with time? And we're only given so much time on this planet to give so much love to ourselves and to our kids and to our friends and to our neighbors and our parents and etc. So that balancing, it's a really cliche, silly saying, but it keeps coming up in everything I read lately. And it's, you either get better or you get bitter. You either get mad at your kids for drawing your attention away or your boss for making you do these things, or you get better and you are able to show up and do the things that you need to do. So if it was so easy, then we probably wouldn't be here. We'd probably be in another dimension doing something else, but it's the gift of learning how to do it. And if you're a Hindu, it might be many lifetimes. It might be infinite. We don't even know what time is. We think it's 14 billion years or 13 billion years, but it might just be an illusion. And maybe when we're done figuring it out, then there's something else. And maybe there's not. Maybe that's it. We just go back to being one with the universe and we become a star up in space, staring back at the rest of the universe, just existing, just having nuclear fission, and we are the actual star. And we're just sitting there, and then we come back into a dimension where we're in a body and we're having to figure it out. So how it all works, I don't think any of us will ever know. But there is definitely a joy and a pain and a suffering to figure it out. And I'm happy to suffer with all you guys this Sunday and try to figure it out. So thank you.
Well, I just want to address two things. One is I want to suggest that maybe it's not so, excuse me, maybe it's not so much loving more, but that there's more entanglement to what I think Tyra was getting at when she was talking about gravity. You know, if there's just more points where that hold is taking effect, so that was one thing, is that it's the entanglement. And Anna, when we keep talking about how, you know, we are the same, and I believe we are, and I believe when we meet somebody that we don't like, it's mostly because they're reflecting back to us something about ourselves we don't like. So if I'm not feeling good about how I'm feeling, whether I want, you know, the degree to which I want to go into that in terms of, in terms of, do I want to change that or not, will have to do with how closely entangled I am in the first place. So I might just decide that, okay, this is making me feel a way that I don't like to feel. So I'm just going to move away from that person. When it's your family or somebody that there's a strong entanglement with, I'm going to go a little bit deeper and try to heal whatever it is that's causing that discomfort in the first place. Unfortunately, usually, you know, if we're not really conscious, the easiest thing to do is to change that person, because that's just so easy to do. And when we're not that entangled, in essence, that's what we're doing. We're kind of moving that uncomfortable energy away from us. So I'm sorry, I got distracted. My son just walked in and I haven't seen him. So I'm going to just take a few minute break and say hello.
May I jump in?
Sure.
Yeah.
So something that has been coming up for me in this conversation is the relationship with the ego and love. And one of the things as I'm going through my memories of opening up to someone that I may not know well and having that experience of exchange and listening, the thing also that I come away with is I feel valued. And so that sense of value of connecting with others, like I'm valuable because I was there at that moment and I was able to lend an ear and empathy. So I was just wondering if anyone had any thoughts on the relationship of feeling valued and just, does someone have some thoughts on that?
I think we're all laughing. Oh, go ahead, Alex. I was just laughing. I don't know if you were here just because Doug is here from the Values Foundation, but I'm sorry. I thought that was funny just because we know each other.
It's the range of values that we're getting to me. I mean, everything is energy. You know, everything is energy. So the values are explicit, and they're based upon the individual's interpretation of what's important and what has meaning. I think it all comes down to what has meaning. So if you value everyone equally, it's indifference. If you more value to one person than another, that means maybe you love one more than another. We'll leave it at that. I can't think of any other meaningful explanation, but I think Doug's got something. Over.
Yeah, I come at it a little bit different than that. So probably one of the most powerful ways I can serve another person is listening. Because in the cultural frame that I live in, it's competitive and it's hostile and it's fear-based, and so most people are driven to silence, and there isn't opportunity to be heard. So creating safety, a big part of this conversation and the conversations in the GCC as a sort of foundational aspiration that I think everybody has contributed to by continuing to come and show up, is to create a container and create safety, enough safety, where people that come here recognize that they can share, and that there are a bunch of people here that will give them their attention at their time from a place of curiosity and generosity and respect. And that's the simple act of listening and being there and receiving what somebody else offers is a really powerful, generative, energetic thing. And for people that have experience challenges being heard or being given the opportunity to be understood, having the opportunity to do that fully and robustly with others that were the experiences of acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean just in service to Sam, in honor of Sam, doesn't necessarily mean agreement or approval or judgment, affirmative judgment, but acceptance from a genuine place of listening and receiving is sort of the essence of how we connect, of how to create connection, how I get to know you and who you are and where you live, what you believe. And honoring that, to Anna's thing about, coming from a place of loving unconditionally, which is loving you and as me, as a variation on the theme, but you are me and I'm you. And I think with that, I'm complete.
I just want to jump in because I heard sincerity, and before Tyra had mentioned the word genuine, and I think it's important in this conversation to say that, so many times I agree with everything you said, Doug, the importance of listening to somebody, but I just want to point out that when it's not sincere or genuine, some people think that's being kind. And I just want to suggest that it's not being kind, because while you may think that that's what you're reflecting, if you're not really wanting to be there, but you're pushing your own feelings down because you want to be a kind and a loving person, that can actually have a very negative effect, because while your words might be saying something, energetically, that's not something you're really in control of. I just want to put that out there because I see a lot of confusion with different people at many times of like what's kind. And I think that genuineness and sincerity are really, really important. And sometimes we don't even know, let me say, sometimes I don't know, I don't realize something until I step back and I look at it later and I say, oh, that's what was going on. It's hard to see everything when you're in it.
Well, Tyra mentioned the ego, and I think I would see what you're describing as a sort of egoic function of sort of feeling, well, I should be here, even though I don't want to be. It's when the ego is expressing ideas, trying to measure up to some image of itself rather than being true.
Okay, let me try connect some dots in this conversation. The thoughts I put out is, okay, you are all fractals of the same higher self that I call me. Let's say with a capital. There's just the wholeness of it, and I'm a fractal of it. And whether I talk to the mirror or to the microphone and the screen here, I'm basically talking to myself. So if I am indeed being kind to myself, imagine me doing what Stacy just suggested, doing that to myself in the mirror, I would immediately know that's bullshit. And so my practice has always been, do I dare to honestly be myself and reveal myself with all my ugliness and doubts and things? And people who have been in this group for over like a year or three, they know that 2 years back I was basically a wreck. in a dying relationship, and I was basically depressed. But when I had the courage to express some of that, it happened to be a value to the group, just because my honesty was appreciated. So I think allowing myself to be Harry, particularly the parts I don't really like about myself, is a great contribution to me with a capital. With that, I'm complete for a moment. And I think that's an expression of love as well. Thank you. And I honestly, love does not distinct at all. I hear the word distinction, so exclusive love is, by this definition, is bullshit, right? Sorry,
I don't
Anna.
understand. What do you mean that it, Harry?
Exclusive love is a contradiction of the term itself. If, according to my definition, love is connection and unity and togetherness and wholeness as an experience of that quality. Then if I cannot love somebody else more, I'm loving myself less completely than in another case. So I like you more because you're easier for me to love because you're attractive or you're whatever, and somebody else is ugly or has these things I don't like. I can't love that yet. So I'm still practicing. That's what I think.
There's a different kind of love that gets confused with the other kind. The love you have for a beautiful person who's shown you great respect and somebody you admire because of their talent and their devotion, that's the kind of love that's a special kind of love. It's reserved for somebody you admire and respect. The love you have for the community, because you love all the community. You want to see all the children in the community happy and educated and well fed, nobody hungry and nobody starving and nobody sick, because you love the community. And that's another kind of love. That's a kind of concern for community welfare. It's a kind of a way you honor your part in the community by having that regard. So you could call it regard instead of love. Over.
Stacy, I want to inquire into, because I'm not sure I got what you were sort of sharing. You sort of stirred in this idea of kindness, and in juxtaposition to listening or attention or whatever. And I didn't get the ingredient that made, that was not in service. I'm not quite sure what it was that you were sharing. Can you say more?
Yeah, so for example, if I think that my presence is something that would be a show of love, for example, but I don't want to be here. And instead of just recognizing that I don't want to be here, which is not the case, obviously, because I wouldn't be here. But to do it anyway with a smile on my face, pretending that I do, is not in service to the community. So if I'm sitting with somebody and I'm not, for whatever reason, it might come out, maybe I feel like, well, I can't really express how I'm really feeling in the presence of this person. And I'm not really being my genuine, sincere self. And I'm still there giving certain cues that I am when I'm really not. That's not in service, because the truth is the truth. And I just think that it's detrimental to try to present something that is not. Is that any clearer?
Yeah, I think I got it. Tyra? Oh, you're still muted. You're still muted. There you go.
So I'm drawing as we're talking about this concept, and thinking about what Joshua said with the, those little electrons and atoms, that electricity, and then it ends up looking like a sperm trying to get into an ovum. So here we all are here, and this is, the connection in the center with the heart. This is the community, this is our reality, and then each one of us is coming in trying to, penetrate that. So I thought I would just share that a little bit there, that, as we're walking around trying to have these exchanges with people, I'm going to imagine myself being this, tenacious sperm that's going to buckle in, and it all comes back to creation. This concept of love is very much like something being born. That second when those atoms have this exchange, and so I'm going to hold that in my mind today as I'm walking around trying to love bomb people. Over.
After we die, God will ask us what we did with all those billions of neurons he gave us. I think it's up to us to create. So we can use our gifts and our knowledge and our connections to create. Over.
Josh?
Josh?
Thanks. I just wanted to be clear what I was talking about, just so it's, because the electrons don't just come in, they pop out at millionths of in a split second, and that's what creates the electricity. So it's not just trying to get in. Only one can get in to replace the one that popped out. So it's very even. But if it's okay, I would read just a little bit more succinct of what I'm trying to say. And this comes from a guy named Meher Baba, and I think I've read it here before, but love has to spring spontaneously from within. It is in no way amendable to any form of inner or outer force. That's what I mean by no inner or outer force. Love and coercion can never go together, but while love cannot be forced upon anyone, it can be awakened through love itself. So that's what I mean is you can't force your electron into someone, but you can awaken their idea of love so they let go of that electron that allows it to come in. So therefore, love is essentially self-communicative. Those who do not have it catch it from those who have it, and those who receive love from others cannot be its recipient without giving a response. And that in itself is the nature of love. So true love is unconquerable and irresistible. It goes on gathering power and spreading itself until eventually it transforms everyone it touches. I just wanted to be clear with what I'm saying, because I'm not, there's no force. If there's force, if there's, like you're saying, Stacy, If you don't want it and it's not there and it's not generous, not coming from that place, then it's not, the physics doesn't work. It's not
Right.
really love, like you said. So thank you for saying that. With that, I'm complete.
That sort of maps perfectly, Tammy, to the alphabet code, because that idea of informing the boundary, I was wrestling with that as well. And I think, I'm not sure who it was it Tyra or somebody who sort of questioned the word boundary in that context. And this sort of frames that in terms of affecting the flow through the boundary of me versus the larger universe around me. And it's directionally neutral, because what I put out, I'll get back, and what I don't put out, I won't get back. So it's sort of like, is it enabling and increasing the flow both directions, and affecting the order of magnitude of that flow, how much I'm receiving, how much I'm sending. So yeah, that's a sort of perfect complement. Yeah, the yin and yang. Yep.
Just sharing with Harry. Put that up there.
If I don't have enough yin, I can't love myself as much as I love the world. So I have the equal amounts to love. How can you love anything if you don't love yourself first? That's what I was trying to say. Over.
I was going to add to that, Alex. To love yourself is to know your capacity and to know you, like Harry was saying earlier, just to know the dark and the light and who you are. So how can you love someone if you don't know your capacity to take in and to give out? Because if you're giving out and you have nothing in your cup, is that loving yourself? So knowing your own capacity, your own battery, your own body, your own boundary, without knowing that, how can you interact with others' boundaries and bodies and entanglement? And and I think it is a whole process of an entire lifetime to know yourself, because there's times when you think, I can't push it any further. And I see with my sister and her kids and anyone who has children, it's almost like, you can't push it further, but yet you do, because of that love for the children. And I really feel like that's what humanity needs to do, is like, whatever we've created on this earth right now, are we going to leave that to our children? Like, can we look at the 7 generations coming up that haven't even been born yet? Do we love them, the souls that haven't come on this planet yet? I really think that's the big light and dark, yin and yang fight of the universe, is, do we as human beings love the other human beings that are coming, that haven't even come to this earth yet, enough to think about how they will feel when they're experiencing this existence and this reality? Are we leaving this reality in a place that's enjoyable for those souls? And maybe that's not up to us. Maybe that's up to those souls coming to this planet to decide if they want to come here. So it's all a give and take. And that's why I think the older generations are connected to the younger generations, because we need each other and we need to listen and learn from the new souls and the old souls, so we can create the reality together. And I don't know if I'm being too metaphorical or too metaphysical or something, but I really do believe that the people, that's why I love history so much, is the people that did everything to create this reality that we're in right now. If we don't understand their intention and their discernment of why they created these nation states, and they mapped out these oceans, and they started, transactions with cotton and slaves and everything that has been done with war and gunpowder, not to quote, but the book Guns, Germs, and Steel, like all of the disgusting bacteria that Europeans brought over to the American continent where I live that killed all the native people, like all this sharing and interaction that was created through thousands of years of history. If we don't look at what they did, how are we going to know what to do moving forward? So to quote like Bob Marley, if you don't know your past, you don't know your future. Actually, I think that was Ziggy Marley. But knowing what was done before helps us to not repeat the things that we didn't enjoy living in, because we're on this earth right now. And if we're not enjoying it, why would we create that again? Like Anna said, I think it was on Thursday, why would we create technologies that just are pain points? And like these kids are going to grow up going, why did my great grandparents do this to me? Like, why did they leave it this way? Why is this reality? Why are they telling stories that I don't want to live in? So it'll be up to each of us to tell our own story and frame it in a way that we enjoy. And I think that is the gift of life, is that we get to reframe these stories. I mean, we don't have to live in the old story. Like slavery is still happening on this planet right now. That's an old story that continues to happen. And most people that I talk to are disgusted by slavery. When we hear about sex slaves or indenture or just any kind of slavery, it's like, oh, that's so gross. But 400 years ago, it was like, hey, that's what we all do. That's just hey, sorry, you're a slave. That's your lot in life. Accept it. Get me my my dinner, slave. So we can frame stories. We can literally have any kind of society that we want collectively. But first, we've got to figure out what happened before and what's going to happen in the future. So I get really afraid that people forget, especially in America. I'm just going to go on a quick rant. I know we're almost at the top of the hour, but I am so afraid that we forgot about World War II and the fascist state that Hitler created and tried to take over the world. And we all in the world fought against that. And now there's all these countries like Bolivia and Venezuela and, you know, Yemen and blah, 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 all these countries that are waiting for some sort of stabilization. But is fascism going to take over again? That scares the shit out of me, especially in America with all of our laws being changed. Are we going to just sit by like we did, not we, but the people in Germany that sat by and said, yeah, I don't have the power. I can't stop this Hitler guy. He just, you know, does a lot of cocaine and talks for 5 hours and he's such a powerful force. I can't stop him. Like, we all wish we had a time machine to just go back and grab him by the collar and say, dude, you need a hug? Like, can we give you some love? Like, why are you so freaking angry? So I just think we have a chance. There's a lot of people like Donald Trumps of the world, these maniacal sociopaths. We got to give them some hugs, man, because they need it. Like, there's a kid that just shot up a high school right near where I live here in Santa Clarita. And the guy that was his neighbor, I saw an interview with him and he said, this kid is so sweet. I wish I gave him more hugs. I don't know why he killed these people. He is a sweet person and he just needed some love and I didn't give it to him. And he was so regretful that he didn't give him that love. So I think that's what we have a chance to do right now, is stand up for someone that's bullying somebody or being a sociopath and say, no, that's not okay. And yes, you are fucked up and you have some serious issues and you're not alone. It's not you against the world. It's you with each. In other words, power with, not power over, I think is the key to love. Is I can't tell you how to live your reality, but I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to try to understand it. And that's where I think it's so difficult to understand people's realities when they don't even come close to matching our own reality. And with that, I'm complete.
So
thank you for letting me. Go ahead, Stacey.
No, I agree with what you said, but I want to bring you back to the beginning of what you said, which was we can't do that until we really know ourselves. So when I look at like the history of the world, the outside looks different, but the people and the inside hasn't really changed that much. I mean, you know, you mentioned Hitler, and I could look at that time and I could look at where we're living now and I could look at the different people and say, oh, you're a parallel to that one over here, or oh, you're a parallel to this. And I think that our tendency as human beings, which is really different from the way a plant would react, is to try and change what's outside of us. And, you know, we say it and it sounds nice, but when it comes to actually doing it, that's when you hear the, yeah, but this is different.
Tyra, you're muted, so you have to unmute.
I wanted to go back to what Harry said, which was dare to be myself. And I love that word dare, because it has a sense of courage, bravery, compassion. It really, so kind of what Joshua was saying, and you know, we have to love ourselves in order to love others. So I'm posing the question to myself: how can I dare to be myself today? What can I do to dare greatly? And I like that. So thank you, Harry, for planting that seed. With that, I'm done.
You're just starting.
I think with groups like this that stick together, there's a chance that we could lead the world out of this crisis, because there's opportunities and there's solutions available to protect us from climate change. If we unite with each other before we lose each other, before we get splintered again by some other group that wants to splinter us. So our sprouts need to be unified with the whole. Any sprout that forms from this group needs to be unified with the mother node, if you like. I think it's there's always I think there always needs to be a session that links us back to where we started, because that's our roots, the roots of the foundation of the venture that when we began. I'm not trying to make a presidential speech about the GCC, but you know, unity is definitely got to be a part of it. If we light a candle in a dark room, that candle sends away the darkness. I call the darkness the fear. The light is the love, the darkness is the fear. So the fear can't exist when love is present. The love pushes the fear away, like the candle pushing the darkness out of the room. So we've got to stick together. Unity is the key. And if I tell two people that I meet out two people I meet out in the town, that if they meet friends of theirs and they pass the message on to friends of theirs that they should get out and vote when the election comes around, we might get more people voting. Apathy is going to ruin it, because the country gets the government it deserves. And if people are encouraged to give up and not vote, that's the end of it. We end up with a oligarchy government. We end up with a corrupt government. People's vested interests, 1%, less than 1%. But if everybody votes, we get a better quality democracy. Over.
We're at the top of the hour, so I just want to invite wrap-up, closing comments and shares from anybody who's...
Josh was raising his hand. Otherwise, I'm in.
Yeah, I'll just go quick, Heiner. I'm just thinking more deeply about what Alex just said, and it's that loving thy neighbor and saying, you're so valuable. I know you think that if you go to the polls and vote, it's already rigged. You don't mean anything. And if we just share with each other of how important it is to be unified, like Alex says, it's more of showing the value and the love for someone's opinion or judgment or vote, whatever you want to call a vote. If we can tell them that it really does matter and they can believe that, that's the key. We can tell them it matters, but do they believe that it matters? And I think that's the difference between working together and working separately. is feeling valued in the joint effort of unification. And if that value isn't felt, there is no unification. I just wanted to put that out there because I think there's a real, we just often let it fly off our back. Yeah, I know my vote counts, but it's all fucking rigged anyway, so who cares? But that attitude is what keeps us from unifying. So please go ahead, Heiner. I just wanted to say that that touched me deeply, Alex. Thank you for saying that, because I need to do a better job at letting people know they're valued. And myself included, letting myself know I'm valued. So I believe it so that I can tell other people.
I resonated much with what you said, Alex and Josh. And I think it's all this old game of lumping and splittering, putting us into boxes. I was just having the book of One Drop of Blood. I think it's a novel by Holland in my hand. And it shows how crazy, how sick we are in our thinking, as we are all one through our bloodlines, through hundreds and thousands and more of years, that we put people into boxes by one drop of blood. Learning about this in the US, knowing it from Germany for 100 years or so, and more worse 50 years ago, it was really showing us how valuable it is that we are coming here together. So over, thank you.
One else with any closing thought?
There's a closing thought here about these space reflectors that are going to eventually be put up in orbit. They're made of very thin graphite. And on the back, there's a LED screen, like similar to the screen on a smartphone. It's very thin, lightweight, but it means that these mirrors will reflect sunlight, but on the back of them facing the Earth, there'll be a TV screen. You'll need a telescope to watch it. Over.
My closing thought is just that we're human beings, and to just focus on that be and really being who I am, not maybe who I'd like to be, and that's my closing thought.
I'll just close with tagging on to that from Stacy. The belonging that happens here is also, there's this beingness and this natural expression, a space to express. And I am really touched by the belonging, the feeling of belonging that happens. And I think, yeah, that's kind of the window into wholeness, is that sense of belonging, at least for me. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, okay. I've been listening and playing, and I don't know. No, I got the wrong screen again. I don't know why that happens to me. Here, this one. Yes. Did it work? Nope. Maybe this isn't possible. Anyway, I was listening to what Harry was saying. Yeah, it's not happening. And he was saying how he feels like he's talking to himself. And I have a little different impression, that I feel like I'm not actually expressing inner emotions like that. The similar way, I feel like I'm trying to actually explain something or, understand. So it's a shame I can't share my screen because I've been playing around with OBS, and I've got a few things. Yeah, it's not working for some reason. You guys are just seeing a blue screen, right? Yeah, no, that's really odd. Anyway, it's all experimentation. I don't mean to do it on the end of the show or on Friday, but you guys can see this thing later. It is being recorded. But yeah, and I'm finding with the unblocking, it's and when I've gone through certain things, the different personalities and expectations of whether we're in a playground or a garden or in between somehow, and what the expectations are, really trying to visualize the space that we're in. That's why I keep going back to, I see nagging at me, and a block for me is being understood, and therefore I like to produce something, right? So, I think last Sunday, it was said, well, if you want to do that, you have to do that. And so it hasn't that I haven't wanted to do it. It's a matter of time. So I had a little time. So I'm starting to play around a little more with this, and I would like some input. You can visualize right now at the bottom of the screen, there's a scroll bar with the alphabet code streaming the words of today: body, love, kind, and understanding. And that's kind of going by slow. And because I think that's a real power of the alphabet code, which seems to be a theme today, is that each of the words are almost like a gateway to your inner emotions of what you're feeling. And so it's not so much, does this letter equal that word, but when you put these stream of words together, how does it make you feel? And what does it bring to you? So it's very much a lens, like Harry's saying, in that way, similar to the way a song, I think, can mean something different to each person. So that's it's like a spiritual thing, which is a personal thing. So I think that was very much a theme of today, and it was a bit somber. Sorry to hear that you're worried, Doug, about some issues. Not something somebody wants to dwell upon and mention, but I can feel for you, and I've gone through that recently myself, and it's the wondering and the waiting is no fun by any means. And so yeah, it's been a very spiritual day. So I've been very quiet, but I think that all in all, my participation is more in trying to not be me, but what I can do to build, because that's kind of what I'm thinking. And obviously I'm not denying the side of the connection that's here as well, and just letting people be who they want to be. And there's all kinds of trails that you can follow up on and different things. So this is kind of the thing. I'm sorry I couldn't share it with you. Also, it had a little square with the meeting times up in the corner, so that, I was hoping that I could flash it at the end of the show, and then people would have, an on-screen visual of the actual date. I find that useful for me. I can pause the screen and go type it out. So anyway, there's a lot of different things I'm trying to mention at the end, but it is difficult in this forum to comment on everything. So I think I've touched enough spots. The thing with Stacy as well, with the kindness, that again is into that theme of what people are able to contribute, where they are, like Harry says, in their ability to contribute. How much agency do they have? That changes based on the gifts that you have that you can share. So while I have a little more time, I wanted to invest it in trying to do a little more video production. That's kind of hoping maybe that we might be able to use it to build smaller segments that we could build out in gems and just highlight them with things. Just do a little bit of production ideas. Nothing. I'm I'm looking for suggestions as well as we go through the development process. So I kind of reach out to Josh or anybody who's interested in that kind of thing. And I don't know why I can't share it, and I won't take any more time, but that's been a very interesting meeting, and thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Anybody else going once, going twice, and then I'll take my turn. Well, I would like to thank everybody for being here, because this is a co-created deal. And showing up is 99% of its magic. So thank you for keeping Sunday Unblocking in existence. And at least in my frame of reference, that's 90% of the battle is, keeping good things going. And needless to say, all are welcome to Open Thursdays and Sam's Saturday barn raising. And there are multiple folks that have sort of expressed oblique interest in potentially doing something in Friday Experiments as a place where a flagpole is currently planted, doesn't have a flag on it in the moment, but anybody can hoist their own flag and claim that time. So yeah, enjoy. Alex, I think it's Monday for you, right? I never will get used to that. So Alex, have a great remainder of Monday, and everybody else who's in Sunday, and be it afternoon or evening. And not sure where you are, but stay warm if you're anywhere near where I am. And with that, I'm going to bid adieu. Love you all.